Hi, this is Donna. Welcome to DD Paper Crafts. In today's video, I'm making a version of a project which I saw on Pinterest, albeit that project was made out of grey board, and you will need to bear in mind the cardstock you're using dependent on the gift that you're putting inside the box. If I move my closure out of the way and I lift up this two lid pieces, as I pull the sides of the box apart, the ribbon is lifting up the gift on the inside. Now, for demonstration purposes and to size this box, I've used a pad which is a 4x4 inch pad, and my box is 1 inch deep. But I think this is a really nice project idea, certainly for something lighter weight, maybe a small notebook or a small diary, or indeed something like a bar of chocolate. This is the only project I've made, so as a consequence, as always with these things, there's things you learn along the way and things you would do differently. I've sized this so that the outer is made from 1 sheet of A4 cardstock and the inner box is made from 1 sheet of A4 cardstock. And I will go through the measurements you would need to consider to change your gift inside. If I were to make this project again, the one thing I would do is I've made these two small lids on the outside 3/4 of an inch, because that then fitted the length of the cardstock. If I were to make this again, certainly in this size, I would have one of these side lids as a separate piece which was hinged on the inside, and then it could come across and down one of the side pieces and then secure. So I do like to be upfront about these things. So the demonstration I will be showing will be making the box this size, but this is the only thing that I would change. So again, we lift the lid up and pull the sides down and your gift will pop out like so. So without further ado, let's get the project started. The first thing you want to do is make the inner box for your particular gift. I'm going to use this as an example. This is 4 inches square and I'm going to make my box 1 inch deep. So if you're making it for a bar of chocolate, for instance, start by measuring the item that you're going to want to put in the inner box. My cardstock for this particular project is 10.5 inches by 5 inches. So your cardstock measurement will be your width, in my circumstance, is 4 inches, plus the depth of my box, which is going to be 1 inch, plus the width again, which is going to be another 4 inches, plus the depth of the box, another inch, plus a 1/2 inch glue tab. So I've scored at 4 inches, 5 inches, 9 inches and 10 inches. So adjust the length of your cardstock depending on the item you're going to put in. In relation to the short side of the cardstock, it's going to be the height of the object, which in my case is 4 inches, plus 1 inch for the width or the depth of the box. So this piece is 5 inches wide and I'm going to score at 4 inches. So we're going to start by making this into what's essentially going to be the cover without a lid for our gift. Fold and burnish along all of the score lines. So before we do any cutting, and if it's your intention to have pattern paper on the outside of the internal box, then you want to add your pattern paper on now. So I have two squares which are 3 3/4 inch by 3 3/4 inch. So I'm going to put one on that section there and one on that section there. The next thing we want to do, I'm going to flip the piece over and work on the reverse, is make our mark for our ribbon holes. So I'm going to use the scoreboard as my guide to help me get everything lined up. And I'm going to line my ruler up with the 2 inch mark down the left hand side. Now, depending on what you're going to be putting in the internal box, you may feel that one hole is going to be enough. If you're going to be putting a bar of chocolate possibly one placement of the ribbon is going to be enough. So I'm going to use 2 ribbon holes for this. I'm going to have it positioned halfway up the side of the box and equidistant from the edge of the box. So my 1/2 inch tab is over on this left hand side because I'm working on the reverse. I'm going to put a pencil mark at 2.5 inches and 4.5 inches, so it's 1 inch away from the score line, and then do one at 7.5 inches and 9.5 inches, so it's in the same position on both sides. Now you want to wait until your piece is completely dry, but then punch holes for your ribbon or whatever it is that you're going to put into the piece, which is going to lift the item up out of the box. So that's my holes in, and now we can put our box together. Keep the 1/2 inch tab on the left hand side and remove the bottom left hand rectangle like so. Then we can take a wedge from the end of these to create our glue tab. Then we can cut up each of the verticals up to the horizontal, do that all the way along, and then take a wedge from the small glue tabs. I'm going to fold over that end and add glue onto this 1/2 inch glue tab, and then fold over the other end to complete the 4 sides of the holder. We flip the piece over to work on the base, fold over the 2 smaller tabs, and then I'm going to secure down the base of the box. Flip it over and I can just go in and spread the glue down on the inside. So we'll sit that aside to dry, and I'm just going to check the box fits in, which it does, like so. So whilst that's drying fully, we're going to make the outside element. For the outer wrap, you'll need 1 piece, working on the same size box as I am, which is 10 5/8 plus a 1/16 times 4 inches. So the width of the piece is going to be the same as the width of your box. So if your box is 6 inches, your width would be 6 inches. For the longest side, I've allowed a 3/4 inch, because I wanted to get this out of 1 sheet of A4, a 3/4 of an inch lid, which is going to come over from the left and from the right. So my first score line will be at 3/4. I'm then going to allow 4 inches plus a 1/16 to come around the outside of the box. So my pencil mark is at 1/16 over 4 3/4. So I'm going to move that along to the next track and score. And then I'm going to rotate the cardstock and do exactly the same. So I've allowed 3/4 for my lid, and then I need 4 1/16 for my side of the box, and then that leaves me with 1 1/16 of an inch for the base. So the width of your cardstock is going to be the height of your box, and the length of the cardstock will be whatever you allow for the top flaps, plus the side of the box, plus I've allowed a 1/16. You'll need that for the left and the right. And then the depth of the box, which is 1 inch, I've allowed 1 inch plus an additional 1/16. So we can fold and burnish. And just to demonstrate, this box is going to sit in this section here. This side section is going to come up over the top, and this side section is going to come over and sit like so. So the next thing you want to do is add your pattern paper to the inside of these 2 side pieces. So what we're going to do to make life as easy as possible is we will adhere the pattern paper onto here, and then we will cut the holes for the ribbon. The ribbon is then going to run through the box, and it's going to run through from the inside of these pages to the outside of the front, where we will then stick the ribbon down and then add the pattern paper over the top. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut myself another 2 pieces of pattern paper, again 3 3/4 by 3 3/4. And I'm going to adhere these so that the tops are up towards the 3/4 inch sections, because this is how the lid is going to come together. So if you're using directional paper on any of these elements, just consider the direction that the paper is going to be running in once the box is in its format. So once that's completely dry, we then want to put in holes so that the ribbon can run through from the front, through this side and into this side. So wherever you've chosen to put the holes in your internal box, you need to make sure that the holes on the outer wrap are going to be in exactly the same place. So I'm going to line my ruler up with the 1 inch mark down the left hand side, and my first pencil mark is going to be at 2 3/4 and 7 7/8, and then move the ruler down to 3 inches, and again it's going to be 2 3/4 and 7 7/8. So I'm going to punch those pencil marks with my screw punch. So the next thing I'm going to do is add glue to the base of this box and stick it into the base section like so. Make sure you only get glue in the base section. Just lift up the doors to make sure that the box is sitting within the score lines and not over the score line. I'm happy with that. So now we want to get our ribbon. Okay, I'm going to start with a piece of ribbon which is 15 inches long, but at this stage I don't know how much ribbon I'm actually going to need. So I'm going to thread it from the outside through the first hole, through the second hole, through the next hole, and then back through the hole in this side. Thread the second piece of ribbon through and then attach one end of the ribbon to the outer side of the outer cover. And then you want to put your gift or your item in the internal box so that the ribbon is being pushed to the bottom. With the item in the box and the 2 doors closed, pull the ribbon as taut as you can. Remove any excess ribbon, as you can see I'm doing here. So in total, I only needed a piece of ribbon which was about 7 or 8 inches. Stick these ends down with some glue. You need to make sure that the ends of the ribbon are really secure. Obviously there will be pattern paper going on top of these with some extra glue. So wait until the glue is completely dried. I'm going to stick some red liner tape over there as well, which I can then just peel the backing off. We'll do the same on this side. So I'm just going to take the pad out to show you. So the ribbon has gone through the outer door, through this side of the box, out the other side of the box, and out the other door. And the reason we've got this excess ribbon in is because this is what sits underneath the gift. So you can see as that went in and pulled the ribbon down, the doors closed. If we pull these sides up, you can see the pad is coming out of the box. So now it is just a case of adding any extra decoration. Here's the finished box. I've added my decorative paper onto all of the sides. So again, these were 3 3/4 inches square, and the side pieces were 3/4 of an inch by 3 3/4. I've added 2 pieces to the top section These were 3 3/4 times 5/8 of an inch. I've added one of these swivel closures on the top, so that will just swing back like so. And then if we lift up the lid, lift up, pull the sides apart, you can see the gift pops out of the top like so. And then that just comes back together like so. So there we have today's project. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.